Wiggs,
Here.
Wilson,
Here.
Arez,
Here.
Cagle,
Here.
Carter, Howard,
Present.
Crane, Esri,
Here.
Farney,
Here.
Fava, Furtado,
Here.
Hanauer Friedman,
Here.
Lakshin,
Here.
Pugh,
Present.
Rodriguez,
Here.
Rogers,
Present.
Settles, Sexton,
Here.
Sollard,
Here.
Locke.
Here. I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda and addenda. Motion by Vanich Theorenot, second by Sollard. Any discussion? Ms. Hannah Friedman?
I move to move communications to just after 10 other business. So we've got a couple presentations. I don't want them to have to wait.
Okay. Is there a second? Second by Lakshin. Any discussion of the motion to amend? All in favor? Aye. All in favor of the agenda as amended? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The motion passes. Moving on, we have January 13th, 2026 regular meeting minutes, which were distributed online and are also on your desks. Is there a motion to approve? Vanich Theorenot, second by Sexton. Any discussion of the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Moving on, public input. I have 0 slips from members of the public. Does any member of the public wish to address the board? If so, please fill out a slip with your name and info, and then also just come on up and hand the slip off to Mr. Wilson. Okay, thank you. It's a late meeting for public participation, so take your time for public participation. Hello, ma'am. Just feel free to state your name. You'll have 5 minutes, okay?
Okay, I won't need that long.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. My name is Marcy Adelston Schaefer, and I want to talk about the Rifle Act, HB 3320, SB 2279, that is in the state legislature now, that you guys are going to talk about hopefully passing a resolution to encourage the state to pass this bill. Anyway, I want to let you know that what this bill entails is that that gun manufacturers would have to pay a fee in order to sell their wares in Illinois if this passes. It would be based on the percentage of gun violence that their weapons have caused the year prior. It would be like an annual fee, and it would go into a pot that with other state monies to support gun violence victims after they have been shot. So I mean, this would raise some money for the state, and it would not impinge on Second Amendment rights because the gun manufacturers would still be able to sell their guns in Illinois, this would actually encourage them to push prevention on gun violence, because how it would work is if their weapons are found to have caused some pain and hardship to somebody, the more that happens, the more percentage of this pot that they would have to put their money into. For those people who, for those gun manufacturers that their weapons were never found, and so maybe they were much better at talking about preventing gun violence, they would not have to pay anything. Now, it wouldn't totally fill coffers. It's not that much, but we're talking about the percentage of about $150 million is what we're proposing. And this is part of, there is a coalition in the state of Illinois of several groups that are, several statewide groups that are supporting this, that are pushing the legislature to pass it. And by the way, Senator Paul Faraci could not be here tonight, but he has told me that he is a strong proponent of this. He has his full-throated support, and actually he was one of the first state senators to sign on as a co-sponsor for this. So I'm just letting you know that even our state senator is really strong in wanting this to pass. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other member of the public seek to speak before us? All right, seeing none, we are going to move along. Communications has been moved. We're moving on to Justice and Social Services. Chair Rogers.
Thank you. The monthly reports for each department's website can be found on the website. Probation and Court Services reports for December 25th and the fourth quarter. The Public Defender's report of January 2026. The Emergency Management Agency for January 2026 and Animal Control November and December of 2025 can be all found on the website. Next, we have a presentation regarding the responsibility in firearm legislation. It's gonna, oh, there we go. Excuse me. I'm gonna introduce Dr. Anthony Douglas. You can take it away. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
I can't see you all, but I trust you can see me okay. Thank you, Chair Rogers, Chair Locke, and the Champaign County Justice and Social Services Committee. My name is Dr. Anthony Douglas. I'm a surgical resident at the University of Chicago, and I'm here today to implore the Champaign County Board to pass a resolution calling on our leaders in Springfield to pass House Bill 3320, Senate Bill 2279, the Responsibility in Firearm Legislation Act. Unfortunately, I had some slides prepared for you all, but I can't download them for some reason. I'm out the country right now, so I'll stick with my remarks for you all, but hope to have those slides to share with you all in the near future. You know, in 2020 to 2024, ICEJA's statewide violence prevention plan noted that Champaign County was among the top 9 counties in violent offenses, mostly involving year in Illinois. The state incurs $18 to $20 billion in direct and indirect expenses for gun injury, which begs the question, who foots that bill? And the answer is that we all do. The injured, their families, hospitals, health insurance companies, small businesses, local government, and ultimately taxpayers. And while Illinoisans pay with their lives and pocketbooks, manufacturers of firearms profit handsomely without contributing a penny to the financial consequences of their products. In fact, not only do they not bear the cost of their for-profit activity with our society, but they also enjoy an unprecedented immunity from lawsuits by our federal government. The Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act of 2005 bars lawsuits against this industry, except in the case of illegal behavior. Since then, firearms have become and continue to be the #1 cause of death for children and teens, pregnant women, and means by which suicide occurs. The Rifle Act requires firearm manufacturers to contribute annually into a special state treasury fund based on how frequently their products are recovered in an injury or death. Their contributions vary year to year based on the rate of gun injury in Illinois and the number of their products recovered by law enforcement. Firearm manufacturers, both domestic and international, would be required to do so for their products to be sold, distributed, or imported in Illinois. The funds will provide additional funding for survivor services and proven community violence intervention efforts through the Reimagining Public Safety Act grants, which supported efforts in Champaign like DREAM and STEAM Genius. Aligning the financial interests of firearm manufacturers with injury prevention, safer innovation, and engaging with community leaders like yourselves to prioritize safety while funding the strategies that we know work is the solution that Champaign County and Illinois deserves. The technology to make firearms safer has existed for decades. The means to establish standards and business practices that reduce illegal and interstate trafficking have always been present. The ability to recall dangerous products like those compatible with switches and other lethal additions is there just like it is in every other industry. But they don't profit from making safer devices or addressing the overabundance of illegal firearms in our communities. They profit from the fear, the trauma, and the narrative that we need their products to keep us safe. By passing the Rifle Act, the state of Illinois in year one of the Rifle Act will save nearly $300 million in costs deferred, lives saved, and investments in evidence based violence prevention strategies. I ask the board to pass this resolution expeditiously and send a resounding message of support to the Illinois General Assembly and Governor Pritzker to pass the Rifle Act this session. Gun injuries cost, and taxpayers shouldn't be paying for them alone. And I'll conclude my remarks. Hopefully, I'm not over time. With uh, it's come to my attention that there have been concerns raised to the board about this particular legislation, and I want to be very clear: the Rifle Act isn't targeting businesses. It isn't targeting manufacturers or law-abiding citizens. In fact, this law only applies to the minority of manufacturers that have products recovered year after year in injuries and deaths, and in the process, lifting the burden that we all as taxpayers bear for the consequences of their for profit activity. Yes, there are laws to hold individuals accountable when they cause bodily harm and break the law, but acknowledging human responsibility does not absolve an industry from any accountability. And that has been made very clear by our country, whether it's the tobacco industry, the opioid industry, or the automobile industry. In the 1800s, handguns with switches that make handguns automatics and AR-15s never existed. And if you don't believe companies should be responsible for the consequences of their product, then we should consider removing seat belts, airbags, rear view cameras, and all the other devices that were added to vehicles after we held the automobile manufacturing industry accountable for the outcomes of their products. So I end again, this is not about the Second Amendment. I agree wholeheartedly that legal gun owners and small and large businesses shouldn't pay for the cost of gun injury. Those who profit from the sales should bear the costs for their societal impact. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Douglas? Go ahead, Ed.
We have to do background checks here, and we have to have FOID cards. So how is that going to change anything other than make it harder for the people who go about it legally to get those firearms?
If I understand your question, Member Ed, you went out at the end, but you said we have FOID card process and background checks. How does that make it any less difficult for people to? How does this make it more difficult for people to obtain firearms? Did I understand your question correctly?
Well, isn't that kind of the part of the safety of the system that we have now is to reduce that? The criminals aren't going to go wait a 3-day waiting period. They're going to buy it somewhere else. The only thing you're going to impact is those of us who buy them legally and play by the rules.
Well, Member Ed, a couple things that I want to address in your comment. This legislation, in fact, doesn't impact those who play by the rules and those who purchase firearms. In fact, it it creates a new market that benefits manufacturers whose products are not recovered in injuries or deaths. You know, regardless if you're a gun owner or non-gun owner, and I've talked to everyone under the sun about this legislation, and regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, nobody believes that taxpayers should be bearing the cost of gun injury. And we often talk about criminals, and we bring up, uh, criminals and misusing firearm products, but we don't often ask the question, how do these products get in these communities? And also, we don't often ask the question about who's responsible for bearing those costs when they have substantial public costs. And so I think it's important for us to remember, that, well, one, that we're not attacking gun ownership. We respect the Rifle Act, and the folks champion for this respects responsible gun ownership. What we're saying is that whether you're a gun owner or non-gun owner alike, it's not our responsibility to bear the devastation for the for-profit activity of a private industry. And I'll just remind everybody that the overwhelming number of firearm injuries are actually not from gun violence, they're from suicide. And the most vulnerable to gun suicide in our country are aging white men with suicidal intentions. And so, when we're talking about the financial impact, it's not often the criminal that's generating a lot of the costs that we're talking about.
Go ahead, JJ.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Dr. Douglas, for your information. My question is about the 18 to 20 billion dollar number that I've seen online in places and in your presentation. How is that 18 to 20 billion dollars calculated?
Yeah, so that number comes from Johns Hopkins as well as data from the CDC, and Everytown has also done the research on that. Essentially, that includes direct and indirect costs. Obviously, the majority of that 18 to 20 billion is indirect costs, such as work loss, productivity, quality of life cost, as well as the value of a statistical life, which are not costs that you can point to as a line item in a county budget or a state budget, but are real costs that are generated as a result of gun violence. When you whittle that 18 to 20 billion dollars down to just the direct costs, the number is closer to between 800 million and $1 billion. And that includes the medical costs associated with gun injury, which is very expensive. Being shot and hospitalized is an average of $82,000 hospital bill conservatively. It also includes law enforcement costs, judicial costs, mental health care costs, costs to employers for rehiring and retraining and loss in productivity, as well as some other categories as well. But those are the biggest ones.
Go ahead.
This sounds really sound to me. One of my questions was about how all of the funds will go kind of into one pool, but they will be dispersed to like providers and like law enforcement. I may have heard that wrong, but how would that be dispersed and like how would that be handled?
Yes, thank you for that question. So the funds go towards the Reimagine Public Safety Act grants, which is an existing system that provides funding for victim services, for community violence intervention, and high risk youth intervention. Those programs are what have led to drastic decreases in gun violence across the state of Illinois, and record drops in gun violence in Cook County as well. The Reimagine Public Safety Act grants identified 16 community areas across the state of Illinois that are particularly burdened with gun injuries. And one of those 16 community areas, which is available online, Champaign County is one of those. And in fact, from 2022 to 2024, I think two organizations received substantial funding for the work that is being done in Champaign County. And that's the organization Dream and Steam Genius. But we're hoping by channeling more funding towards the Reimagine Public Safety Act grants, we can fund more organizations that are doing the work across our state.
Jay.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Douglas, for your presentation.
No problem.
Number one, I absolutely disagree with what you're saying, and I'm going to put that on the record that I 100% disagree with you. And I'm going to go back to the U.S. Constitution Amendment number 2. I'm sure you've memorized that. It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And this is a clear infringement on the people's right to bear and hold arms. Even though it's a fee so-called to a manufacturer, that's still going to put a chilling effect on those that want to acquire arms. And even though some members don't like what I'm saying and they give me bad looks, I really don't give a rip. It's our right, it's a constitutional right, a constitutional right. No, so today, if someone bought a car, I won't say the manufacturer, and another individual stole that car and then run over 200 other people, which would be a great cost to society, there's no legislation that says that car manufacturer is responsible for the individual taking a choice to use it in a harmful manner. So the responsibility is not to the manufacturer. Responsibility is 100% to the user. And I think that's really a problem with our society. Our society just wants to blame everybody else rather than the individual that makes the adverse choice that either harms themselves or harms others. And I would believe and 100% suspect that this will be challenged in front of the Supreme Court because it provides a chilling environment against our constitutional Second Amendment rights. Well, I'm 100% opposed to it, and I'm going to vote no to this, and I hope other people will agree with me.
Am I able to respond to the comment?
Go ahead, doctor.
Okay, thank you. So a couple things. You used the example of cars, and I'm sorry, I think it's Member Jack, or I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but you know, if cars were running over people, and that was the number one cause of death for children and teens, the number one cause of death for pregnant women, and the number one means by which suicide occurs, I think we would be having a different conversation. And I remind us of our history that there was a time where there was no bad cars, just bad drivers. And that was when cars had no safety features, no seat belts, no airbags, none of those things, until we created a system of accountability for automobile manufacturers. The same is true for many of industries in our country. You know, whether it's the opioid industry, I'm sure they raise the same concerns that personal responsibility is the cause for the opioid epidemic, not our manufacturing practices. I'm sure that those same concerns were raised with the tobacco industry as well. Yet we've held all of these industries to the same standard of accountability when it comes to the outcomes of their products. So, in fact, you know, this is the firearm industry should not be the exception. Right now, they are, and that is because of a federal law called PLACA. We wouldn't need this type of approach to hold manufacturers accountable for their for-profit activities if they weren't shielded from lawsuit. They would have the same liability as all of these other industries do. You know, on the case of the Second Amendment, I'm not really clear how where you get the perception that this infringes on your ability to exercise the Second Amendment. May perhaps the concern is about the cost associated with this bill and whether manufacturers will pass through those costs in the same way that tariffs pass through costs to the baseline consumer. We have done the math, and the cost increase on a firearm would go up by from $0 to $88, depending on how much of this cost that manufacturers decide to bear. They don't have to pass through the cost. They make plenty of profits from the sales of firearms, but that is a possibility. And so I just, again, I want to reiterate that this is not the firearm industry is an exception. This is if Ford or Chevy created a new vehicle that had some type of innovation that was the number one cause of children and teens death or pregnant women, they would be sued until there was some type of major change in their innovation or recall in the products that was causing the harm. All we're asking firearm manufacturers to do is to enroll them in the same standard of accountability that exists for every industry in our country.
Go ahead. Oh, Jeff isn't done. Go ahead, Jeff.
There isn't a second amendment or any amendment against yellow dye, red dye, automobiles, or any other things that we manufacture, or the electricity or anything. It just so happens that we have a constitution. And that constitution has in writing the Second Amendment. And where I come from on that.
Point of
it's-
order, I think we're going to have time to discuss this later, but right now we should ask questions of our presenter because he probably needs to go.
As long as we have further discussion. It doesn't
Well,
get
we'll
tabled.
have time for discussion when we address the resolution. I just think to be respectful of our presenter's time, if you have questions for him right now, I defer to the chair, but that's.
I agree. Jeff, do you have a question or is this a comment? Because so the next step is
defer
the
to that.
resolution, so then you can make your statement. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Go ahead, Jenny, and then Eric, and then Emily.
Yeah, Dr. Douglas already addressed what I wanted to say. Thank you.
And, okay, Eric, go. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. And then John. Eric's first, and then you, John.
Dr. Douglas, thank you. I don't know what time zone you're in, but you're clearly running the risk of hotel internet. So the bravery just on that alone should be commended. You said you're a surgical resident, so I assume that you have maybe a more intimate knowledge of what guns can do to a human body. You've probably seen more than I would ever care to see. I support this, and I will discuss a lot more about this when we get to voting on the resolution itself, but I appreciate the work you put in to this and what you gave us in the presentation tonight. And I just wanted you to maybe briefly describe what it's like to have to deal with people who come in to your care who've been shot by some of these assault weapons or large caliber handguns, whether it be a suicide or an act of violence. What kind of trauma both the person and the people who love that person go through.
Thank you for the kind remarks and for the opportunity. It's hard to really put into words what it's like to be a surgeon who takes care of trauma victims, especially from gun violence, which obviously is preventable. I've seen children in utero, meaning pregnant women with who have been shot in the stomach, and babies before they're born. At the end of their illustrious careers in public service, lives lost because they were driving on the wrong side of the highway at the wrong time when a bullet struck through with their vehicle. There's really no words to truly describe what it's like to watch, to have children look you in your eye and ask you, are they going to survive? Are they going to die? It is one of the most difficult experiences. I had no desire when I went into medicine to engage in politics or to engage in policy, but it is the experience of myself and many other surgeons every day who put their emotional and mental health on the line to care for these victims that we engage in this space to end what is very preventable. And so, that's for me. For families, the toll is immeasurable. I mean, when somebody is shot and injured, it sends shockwaves through communities that really are intangible that can sometimes lead to additional gun violence that can uh, completely devastate individuals' quality of life, both those who are injured and those who take care of the injured. It is a financial burden. We see many families go into financial crisis as a result of paying for the expensive cost associated with caring for their loved ones and the medical bills that incur. And so it's the toll is massive, and I think this is why it's so important for us to to incentivize this industry to engage in prevention, safer innovation, and to share some of these costs and have some skin in the game. And I think we'll be better off as a society. And we've seen what accountability does when industries and manufacturers share the burden of the public cost and the public harm that their products create.
Go ahead, John.
Just want to say thank you, Dr. Douglas, for your presentation, and I appreciate your willingness to come in and answer questions and take some critique, I think, from certain members as we go through this. One of the things that you brought up and gets mentioned pretty frequently through this, and then again in our resolution, you bring up the tobacco and the opioid industry. One of the things that we've sort of learned over the last decade with the opioid industry and then back when tobacco manufacturers were held responsible, there was a deliberate and concerted effort from both of those groups to mislead consumers regarding the safety or overall addictiveness. There were studies that tobacco industry had conducted and then attempted to bury. The opioid industry is the same. Are there gun manufacturers that you were finding in your research and sort of preparing for this that are deliberately misleading people in around the deadliness of the weapon, or is this just a convenient comparison?
No, I think we've certainly seen a shift in marketing since 2005 when firearm manufacturers were shielded from lawsuit. There was well, really kind of an abrupt change in the way that firearms were marketed to consumers. There were a lot of very popular firearm manufacturers who were marketing towards respectable for respectable gun ownership and adjusted their marketing towards not only children, which is why why in the Sandy Hook mass shooting, the manufacturers lost that particular lawsuit because there was an existing statute that you could not market to children. But also, many manufacturers have taken out, the lines regarding respectable gun ownership in their marketing. We've seen marketing that says, urban super sniper and rooftop ready and a lot of different changes, in marketing where our mission is to equip as many citizens with AK-47s and AR-15s for common use in America today, which we know what the common use in America looks like. So there's been a pretty significant shift in how firearms are marketed since they've been shielded from from civil liability. And I'll just reiterate, opioids and tobacco industry are two relatively recent and well-known examples, but we have many other industries where if you have a predictable and inevitable public cost or harm associated with your product, that you contribute to the outcomes of those products. And we could, I mean, in the interest of time, I won't list them all, but in the insurance industry, they contribute into a fund in the event that they go bankrupt and can't render the insurance products they promised. In the oil drilling industry, in the chemical and nuclear engineering industry, they contribute into funds in the event that they have a catastrophe, not when it happens. And so this standard exists of financial accountability in many, many industries across our country. And so hopefully that answers your question, but also provides you a few more examples outside of the tobacco and opioid industry And of course, the automobile industry is another example as well.
That did answer my question. Thank you. I did have a follow-up, though, if I can.
Yes.
Not necessarily related to that. I appreciate that answer. It was thorough and helpful. The other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit relates a little bit to the automotive industry. So over the last several years, decades or so, we've seen pretty drastic increases in cost, a base cost for an automobile. So we see those prices go up, and the people adding, $70 to the cost of a firearm, $80 to the cost of a firearm is not going to stop me from purchasing one, but it will stop other people that I know very closely that are going to be impacted by this. Do we have? I know you had a little bit of a commentary kind of around the. We're hopeful that the manufacturers will just kind of eat the cost and take it out of profits out of some altruistic goal. I'm skeptical on that. The question overall I think I have is what impact is being projected on low cost, these are the affordable firearms that folks can that are financially struggling but need to protect themselves from an abusive spouse. They are victims of domestic violence. These are people that are not financially well off. They're not going to be able to absorb the additional cost burden that's going to be associated with that. Do we have expectations around that? Kind of assuming that the gun manufacturers aren't going to just wipe out profit, that they're going to pass that along to consumers. I mean, you mentioned tariffs. I think we've had conversations amongst this body about how tariffs increase costs. Anytime we add additional burdens, the cost gets passed on to consumers, and the consumers most affected are the ones that are financially struggling the most. So I was just curious if you had any research or any data that you've had associated with this that are going to kind of speak to that a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that I briefly mentioned in my remarks, the fund total changes year to year and adjusts based off of the rate of injury and death in Illinois. So ideally, as manufacturers of firearms respond to the financial incentive that we're creating, the costs that they contribute to this fund also decrease. And the second part of that is, we looked at the data for through the Illinois Violent Death Reporting System for 2024, I believe, and 55 manufacturers had products recovered in deaths in Illinois. There are at least 11,000 manufacturers that operate in the United States. So we're talking about a very small percentage of manufacturers that will actually feel a financial impact by this legislation. Which also means that there are thousands of substitute goods that will continue to persist at ideally the same market price, and would honestly provide a substantial benefit, a market benefit to manufacturers who don't have products recovered in injuries or death, which there are more that are not being recovered, more manufacturers who don't have products recovered than there are. And so I think that's an important piece is that, while, there's conversations about excise taxes and on firearms and ammunition, which is very broad and non-specific, this legislation is very specific. It only holds manufacturers accountable that create public costs. And right now, that's a very small minority of manufacturers. And so I believe, and I'm confident based on the number of manufacturers that operate in Illinois and across the country, that thousands of substitute goods would persist at its current market price without any impact from this legislation.
One last follow-up. I promise to be quick. For firearms recovered for the manufacturers, is there any information kind of on average the retail cost of those? I know you mentioned the kind of overwhelming numbers of firearm manufacturers, and I know a lot of those are very boutique, expensive firearms. I'm curious if there's any information on average, if it's a low-cost firearm, if it's a mid-tier that's got a more replaceable good, or any information kind of relating to the kind of economics of firearm purchase? I know that that's getting into a little bit of nuance, and I'm happy to take it offline too.
No problem. Happy to talk offline as well about it. For the economic analysis, we use what is currently considered the average price of a firearm, which was around $502 for our economic analysis. And we looked at the manufacturer when we did the how much the price on the firearm would go up by $0 to $88. We used a specific manufacturer that was top 2 in Illinois deaths that year. So that $0 to $88 is actually an extreme example for a manufacturer that too frequently has products utilized, whether it's in injuries, suicides, homicides, or accidental injuries in our state.
I'm done. Thank you.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you. Dr. Douglas, Aaron Esser here. I have a couple questions. I can either ask them both, or would you prefer one, let you answer, and then ask the second?
Maybe the first one. I'm a little fatigued. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's fine. So the first one, opioids and tobacco and other drugs, they're addictive, and basically, some of them, you can take one time, and they basically flip a switch in your system, in your brain, that makes your body physically crave those drugs. Is there any study that you're aware of that, say, once somebody picks up a gun and fires it one time, that they've became addicted to firing guns to where their body craves that usage of a gun? Because in my book, equating the two is a false equivalence. Drugs are addictive. To my way of thinking, nothing has ever been proven that I pick up a gun and I fire it, I am now potentially going to be addicted for the rest of my life to want to return to picking up that gun and firing it.
So I don't wholeheartedly agree with your assessment about how opioids work as a physician, but what I will say is, the narrative that guns protect us is just as pervasive as some of the arguments that that you're making. And the fact of the matter is, when we look at the data, firearms are not only marketed, but the narrative that these guns keep us safe. The data shows that for every 34 suicides and 1 accidental injury. And so we've been buying into this narrative that these firearms protect us, which I'm very aware that not all firearms are purchased for self-defense. Some are purchased for hunting and for other recreational activities for sport. But when we talk about the firearms that are being recovered in injuries or deaths, and how these firearms are marketed and the narrative that exists in our society, the reality is these more than they protect us from a tyrannical government or the criminal that's lurking in the night. So I think that is a narrative that I hope that we've started to address in this effort, and that we must change in order to save more lives, not only from suicide but also from violence itself.
Okay, thanks. I'll take that as a no, that there aren't any studies. My second question, dealing with, you mentioned early on, basically the founding fathers, the Second Amendment, they didn't foresee like the weapons that we have today, the firearms that we have today. And I guess my question would be, did they foresee the internet? And my thinking is cyberbullying leading to suicide. Should we not be going after Apple for providing the phone that's in my hand that can be used to cyberbully our young people into committing suicide, which suicide is a terrible thing no matter what, how, when it happens. I've had friends commit suicide. It is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
So should we be going after, like I say, the makers of these electronics? Because the founding fathers, they surely couldn't foresee this. No more than the founding fathers could foresee firearms. Yes, the First Amendment protects our right to free speech, but the founding fathers never foresaw this.
One, genuinely, I'm sorry about your loss. Two, there are currently efforts to hold companies like Apple, like Meta, like Facebook, Instagram, that run Facebook and Instagram, many of these organizations accountable for what their products create and how they've led to essentially dramatic rises in suicide amongst young people. So those are things that are not only actively being considered in terms of legislation and regulation at the state level, but also the federal level as well. And that's a bipartisan. That industry, Apple, Meta, and all the other industries that you just the social media and organizations that you just listed, is they have civil liability. You can sue Apple right now if you chose to for all the consequences you just talked about, and that is the power and the beauty of civil liability, is for society, local and state governments to hold industries accountable when their products create public cost or public harm. And so we are seeing the consequences of when you shield an industry from that form of indirect regulation. What happens? I mean, we've given away our only ability as private citizens and as local and state governments to hold an industry accountable for the public harm and cost they generate. But that's not true for Apple and for Meta. And so tomorrow, if I encourage you to file a lawsuit against them, and hopefully after we pass the Rifle Act, that could be next on our agenda, is to address the overwhelming contribution of mental health impact on young people from these type of this type of innovation.
Thank you. Excuse me, got the thing you got. More of a correction than anything else. This is the AK-47, the AR-15, and a good number of semi-automatic assault rifles are not available for sale in Illinois. Thank you.
They aren't for sale, but they are circulating our communities. I do want to make that point.
Does anyone else have any questions for the doctor? Well, thank you so much, Doctor. We're going to move on to voting on the resolution. You are welcome to stick around if you would like. Okay. If I can get a motion to approve the resolution supporting the Responsibility in Firearm Legislation Act by Ellie, and then second by Jenny. Okay, discussion. Jeff, do you want to start since we cut you off?
Thank you. There's a lot of tragedy associated with gun violence. I don't think anybody can deny that. And there's a lot of misuse, or there is some misuse. And sometimes it can be very personal. And there can be maybe secondary and tertiary causes and cost to society. But there isn't a Second Amendment or some other type of amendment related to automobiles or internet or the ingredients that are in a cell phone, or how all those ingredients are put together to create that technology. It all comes down to the fundamentals of what makes the United States the United States. And that is those 10 Bill of Rights, of which one of them is the right, it's our own personal right because of our Constitution, along with free speech, property rights, all those other ones, freedom to assemble. It's a right. And it can be and has been perceived as a chilling environment to have end arounds to charge fees to manufacturers. So I can understand the energy and I understand the pain of injury, but nevertheless, I'm going to stick with the Constitution of the United States, which I think most of us have sworn to uphold. So I'm still going to vote no, and I will continue to vote no.
Emily?
Call this as a point of order, but I think it's going to become more of an argument. The Second Amendment reads as follows: a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. I think it's a human thing to want to correct really poorly written sentences, so I understand condensing the Second Amendment into something that is more persuasive, but the fact of it is, if you break down the sentence, there's multiple interpretations. I think it's a selective read, the one that Mr. Wilson offers. I do applaud the sudden twist in our Republican colleagues now concerned for low-income folks. No, I'm not. I'm responding to this thing that we're offering right now. I'm sorry. I said it might be a point of order. However, I think it's going to turn into an argument, so I did not make it a point of order. That's exactly what I said. Can I continue, Chair? Okay, thank you. Excuse me for ruffling some feathers by reading the amendment in full. I understand how that can be upsetting. So again, I think, and the thing I would like to, again, kind of circling back, I think the sudden interest in low-income folks is touching. I hope to see more of that. I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Go ahead, Beth.
This argument has been occurring in this country for decades at this point. It is not going to be settled here tonight. One side is going to wear the Second Amendment. One side is going to point to all the other amendments that have restrictions on them, such as a 5-minute limit on public participation comments. Some could say that's a chilling effect on free speech. Others would say that's illegal for governments to impose, and yet it's on the books. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That is an infringement on free speech, and yet it's on the books. And that is on the First Amendment, which came first for a reason. Regardless, this is a vote of endorsement, either support or against, a encouragement for the state to pursue or not pursue. You are not going to settle this tonight. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. Everybody knows it. I'm calling the question.
Okay, John?
I'd like to offer an amendment to the resolution. I would like to strike the word strong from the now therefore be it resolved paragraph. I would like to add an additional whereas that reads, whereas the Champaign County Board is not unified in support of this legislation, and that the roll call vote of this resolution was as follows, and then list the entire roll call, including board member name, district, and how they voted.
Is there a second to John's? Okay, Ed? Okay. It was called to question, so now we're going to take a vote, but it's going to be a roll call. No. Oh, we have to vote on the amendment. Is there discussion on the amended?
I believe there would be, right?
Go ahead.
I think this accurately describes how this board feels right now.
Does anyone? Okay, Ellie?
I don't have previous resolutions like this in front of me, but I don't recall us doing something like that on previous resolutions. Either it passed or it didn't pass.
That's exactly why I'm offering it as an amendment. We don't have to have precedent on this. I'm offering the amendment. If you don't like the amendment, vote it down.
Jenny?
I'm in agreement with the amendment, actually. I think it's smart to point out that it isn't a universally accepted notion in Champaign County. I think people should be able to see who supports and who does not support holding gun manufacturers accountable. I'd be all for it.
Eric, do you still want to talk?
About the amendment? I think it's fine. My name's Eric Thorsland. I represent District 7, and I'm for this amendment. And I'm for the resolution itself. So if Mr. Farney wants to add that accountability above and beyond what would be in the minutes, then that's fine with me.
Okay. Now we can vote on the amendment. Okay. All those in favor of the amended resolution? Amendment to the amended resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, it passes. Okay. So now we vote on the amendment. Okay. And are you asking for a roll call vote for that? Okay. So we're going to take a roll call vote on the amended resolution.
Thorsland,
Yes.
Vanich Theronot,
Yes.
Wiggs,
Yes.
Wilson,
No.
Arez,
Yes.
Cagle,
No.
Carter,
Yes.
Yes.
Crane, Esri,
Hell no.
Barney,
No.
Furtado,
Yes.
Hanauer Friedman,
Yes.
Lakshin,
Yes.
Pugh,
I have to abstain. I'm not at liberty to say.
Let's just.
Rodriguez,
Yeah.
Rogers,
Yes.
Sexton,
No.
Sollard,
Yes.
Locke.
Yes.
It passes. I have no other business. I have no chair's report. And no items to be placed on the consent agenda. Back to you, Chair Locke.
Thank you for hanging in there with us through your coughing fit, Chair Rogers.
Thank you.
Moving on,
It's a sinus
policy,
infection.
personnel, and appointments. Chair Vanich Theronot, we hand it off to you.
Thank you. The monthly HR report for January 2026 is available on the website. We have four appointments. We are reappointing Alicia Beck to the Rural Transit Advisory Group, unexpired term ending 12/31/2027. Can I get a motion? Motion by Locke, second. By Thorsland. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Reappointing Kyle Patterson to the Mental Health Board, unexpired term ending 12/31/2029. Can I have a motion? Ms. Furtado, in a second. Ms. Lakshin, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Reappointing Linda Turnbull to the Housing Authority Board of Champaign County, unexpired term ending 7/31/2030. Can I have a motion? Jamal, can I have a second? Ms. Lakshin, any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Appointing Cynthia Cunningham as Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Can I have a motion? Mr. Esri, can I have a second? Mr. Thorsland, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The currently vacant appointments, full list of information is available on the county's website. The county clerk fee report is available on page 13 in your packet as well as on the website. The county executive updating the county travel policy to prioritize Willard Airport for all air travel. Is this just a memorandum? Or is this is an actual? Okay, go ahead.
So moved, Locke.
What'd you say? I said so moved. I have a motion. Can I have a second? Ms. Lokshin. Discussion.
So typically with these, what I've seen in the past for similar situations, we usually have like a cost associated with it. So if it, if it costs like an extra $10,000 to fly out of Champaign, obviously that's a financial burden on the county. This doesn't really call any of that out. I get the preference and I'm generally in support of it, but without some of that like guidance on there, is there any concern that it creates unnecessary financial burden? It's maybe a question for Steve or for.
Ms. Lokshin?
Hi, I will speak to this one since it's part of Experience CU and I serve on that board. It's not a directive that you are forced to use Willard. It is a request that we consider our hometown airport, especially now that United is an option that should help hopefully provide for some competitive airfares. We also need to take into account when people travel for the county that mileage is part of their expense. So when looking for flights, please, be mindful of potentially if you're driving to Peoria, it might end up bumping your cost of a flight up higher because your mileage driving to and from will make it the trip more expensive. So again, it's just a directive to take a look. It's not any kind of official travel policy, and we just want to make sure that people consider Willard as an option.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Locke?
I just want to point out that this is purely aspirational, like Jenny said, but it does aid the airport in its marketing, showing that we've got all the municipalities around are good neighbors, that we have this policy where we're going to try, we're going to do this. And there are currently 2 incentives that the airport is trying to use, one for a recreational and one for a direct business flight to DC, because we don't have any of those. And sure, it would be nice if we had those. And the more pieces of information they can show that there's a buy-in, and that doesn't have to have any dollars associated, but they'd have our past resolution that can go in their packet of marketing where they say, hey, look, and they're going to consider this. And the more providers the more flights we have available, the lower the prices will be. So I'm strongly in support of this, and it costs just $0.
Mr. Thurston?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Too many drums, too many motorcycles, too many guns. Thank you for pointing that part out, that it's aspirational. The other thing I want to point out that I read, and you know how I feel about Willard Airport, is that none of the money we voted on for incentivizing flights and things was used for United to come. I wouldn't say I'm excited that United is coming, but I'm happy to see that there'll be a second airline at our dinky little airport. Everyone would love that airport to be a great option. It's nice, it's close, and the parking's cheap. Not as cheap as Bloomington, hint. But it would be great to be able to use that for someone who flies a lot to faraway places, to start out my flying to a faraway place with a 3.5-hour drive and the hassle of either dumping a rental car or finding some extraordinarily expensive place to park my car. It would be great if I could just put up with the Savoy drivers and cruise down the road and get on a plane there. So I'll support it. I wish them luck, and I hope that it works well.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you. I 100% want to support Willard Airport. I think it's awesome that we would consider that. My challenge is that it does say policy. It doesn't say preference, it doesn't say aspiration. So are we intending to change the travel policy? And why wouldn't we change the travel policy to say our preference is Willard unless costs otherwise dictate? So is this a policy or not, or is it just aspirational? If it's just aspirational, why don't we just call it Fly Hometown?
Ms. Locke?
Was that Lock or Lokshin? Okay. Okay, I couldn't tell. So I'll liken this to rules that lawyers have to follow. It's all the same code of ethics. Some are shall or some are should. This policy is not a shall. This policy is a should. And it's just, it shows our values as neighbors to our airport. It doesn't say we must use it. It says we should consider it. That's all. So our policy is not we shall. Our policy is we should think about it.
Are you? Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Should this pass, we can add this as an addendum to our county travel policy. And per John's comment, if you look at the second bullet point, we will always consider the overall expense of business travel. So this is not something that is mandating that the flights will come out of Willard, just that we look closely at the price, and if it's competitive, strongly suggest that we utilize the local airport.
Ms. Lockshin, did you want to comment? Ms. Furtado, or were you guys both flagging me down to get Steve? Okay, seeing no other comments, can we get a vote? All those in favor of updating the county travel policy to prioritize Willard Airport but not mandate it for all air travel?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I have no other business. I have no chair's report. Designation. Did I skip the, sorry. Approval of an exception to the purchasing policy. If you look at pages 15 through 19 on your packet, there is a very detailed outline of a preemptive request to not follow the purchasing policy rather than a post facto request. You're moving it, okay. Motion by Farney, second by Wiggs, thank you. Discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, Shannon is here if we have any questions. I think Matt did, but he had to run. Nobody else can has a question.
I guess if Shannon's here, if she could give a quick highlights.
Okay, I have a specific question for her from Matt though, but he had to leave.
Okay.
So, he had wanted to know if there was any kind of urgency to this versus just following the regular procedure for like a sole source.
So the contract that we had on the current instrument expired at the end of December, actually. And so they've extended what we have currently through the end of March. So we kind of need to get going because we only have our current instrument supported until the end of March.
That makes sense. All right. Mr. Ezra, did you have your hand up? Or?
Well, she
You just
kind
want her to
of
give
answered a little bit, but maybe just to
Okay.
touch more into it, if you could, Jan, just real quick.
I mean, so we've had our current instrument since 2017. In 2017, I believe what the previous director did some sort of sole source RFP thing where he just kind of made an RFP directly for this instrument. And so, I could have done something like that, and I can do something like that, but I was trying to kind of figure out, do I need to do something like that or not? And I'm trying to follow all the appropriate procedures on doing something, so I wrote this up to just check with you guys beforehand. We are not making this purchase outright. It's something that we pay as we order the supplies throughout the course of the year. We want to continue doing, well, nobody really wants to continue doing urine testing, but urine testing is the gold standard when it comes to court. As far as drug testing, urine testing is the gold standard. So we are kind of tied into doing urine testing still. And this is a vendor we've had a long time relationship with since 2017. So trying to switch to something new when we are kind of familiar with all the people involved and all that would be difficult at this point.
Ms. Hannah Freeman?
I just want to reiterate a point that was brought up in our caucus, and that is basically just to thank you, Shannon, for bringing this to us, because often we don't see this type of thing until it shows up on the purchases not following purchasing policy list. So we appreciate you bringing this to us now.
You're welcome. That's what I was trying to avoid. I didn't want to be in trouble. I'm a rule follower.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. Yes, indeed, you are setting the standard, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other comments, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other business. I have no chair's report. Designation of items to be placed on the consent agenda are 8A to B and D and C1, D1. And I will turn it back to our chair.
Thank you. Moving on to Finance, Chair Hanauer-Friedman.
Okay, we have our budget amendments and transfers, monthly general corporate budget amendment report, information only. Moving on, we have budget amendment BUA 2025-12-1292, Fund 1080, general corporate, Department 041, State's Attorney. Increased appropriations, $3,936.13. Increased revenue, 0. Reason, appropriation to cover remaining invoices for fiscal year 2025. Can I get a motion? Thorsland, second. Lakshin. Any discussion? I was hoping someone from that office would be here. I am just going to move to strike this from consent because I do have a question. If you look at the memo, the $1,000 used for software for Child Support Enforcement Division, I'm wondering why that is not being charged to their specific Child Support Enforcement Fund. So I will follow up and see if we can get an answer to that. Any other discussion? Yeah, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. It's more of a process question. If a department overspends, is there a consequence associated with that? Is there a clawback on their existing budget or not? It's just overspend. Okay, you overspent. You told me you overspent, and now we're paying for it regardless. Is that what the process is?
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it's been spent. We have to pay for it. And the general fund, will be paying for this. We as a board could certainly discuss ramifications for next year's budget, but it's too late for fiscal year 25. Chair Locke.
Jeff, I thought the same thing. We agree sometimes. Sometimes. I actually thought that if the state's attorney has unspent personnel money from 2025, we could pay for this out of the unspent personnel money. That would also require a budget amendment, but that's what we're doing with this anyway, right? Functionally, as we talked about in our caucus, functionally it's the same thing because any unspent personnel money reverts to the general fund. So functionally, it's still getting paid for out of general fund money, but we can make an example, right? But I also don't want to ruffle feathers in the state's attorney's office because I understand that they're not in control of a lot of their costs. Like, these are the things that needed to be paid at the end, but they can't predict how many witnesses they're going to have to put up in a hotel before a trial. They can't predict a lot of different things that happen based on what goes to trial, when it goes to trial, where people live. That said, universally across departments, it would be nice if we had ramifications for overspending. They do have to come to us and tell us so, and so we can do this if need be. I don't think in this case it's necessary to do the for shame because it's a lot of times outside of the state's attorney's office control. But I do think that if there's unspent personnel money, we should have a policy of amending it to pay for out of that. But functionally, still just comes from the general fund.
Ms. Harris.
And I appreciate that note, because on that note, I was wondering why some of the, for example, the gas costs and the registration costs didn't go towards their travel or vehicle equipment cost. But like you said, I understand that that's just me being a stickler and just wanting transparency, but it would be better, I think, if they put it under those parts of their budget. That's all I needed to say on that.
I think that is under, I think those do fall under their general fund.
Yeah, it just says office supplies and equipment less than 5,000, so that's why I thought it would be better to put it under transportation and/or vehicle supply / gas and oil.
Oh, I see, you're looking at the journal proof.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Furtado?
I will say, we, actually, this year has maybe been the least of these. Now, I understand we have not received the personnel ones, which will be sizable, because we asked them, to do them all at once. And so my understanding is we're probably going to get them at the full board, where it's just the full landscape of, all the different personnel driving things. But in general, we usually start seeing these kind of things in like December, January, and February. And I will commend our elected officials. They usually they try very, very hard to stay within their budgets. And this is in line to the kind of overspending. I mean, this is less than $5,000. Budgeting is not an exact science. In a lot of different departments, sometimes there are costs that are not anticipated. If we see, for example, for several years in a row, we saw, before this current coroner, we saw huge overspending in the contractual line by the coroner's office because there were so many more autopsies and complicated autopsies, and eventually the board was like, all right, we're just under budgeting that office by, $100,000 a year. We just need to correct that. But this is within, I don't want to say within the margin of error, but this kind of thing is typical for year end. We usually, if you go back and look at your your board packets from last year, if I recall correctly, we saw much more of these. If we get out with just this one, and I think we had to do one for the public defender for some services lines that they had at the last meeting or the meeting before that. If we get out through the end of the year with just that, we've done very, very well for ourselves. But I do want to commend the elected officials. They try very hard, especially on the non-personnel things, which are often driven by causes outside that they don't control, collective bargaining, retirements, things like that. I do want to commend our elected officials because they do try to live within the budgets that we give them.
Any further discussion? Mr. Farney?
Yeah, I just, along with what Ms. Locke said, on page 31 of our agenda packet, you have the available budget report, and you'll see that the state's attorney is returning about $16,000 in personnel costs. So this is a wash.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Budget Amendment BUA 2026-2-9, Fund 2500, County Grant Fund, Department 031, Circuit Court, increased appropriation $71,823.81, increased revenue 0, reason appropriation of the Adult Redeploy Illinois grant funds for fiscal year 2026. Can I get a motion? Mr. Farney, second by Ms. Carter. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Budget Amendment BUA 2026-2-11, Fund 2500, County Grant Fund, Department 075, General County, increased appropriations $27,695.64, increased revenue 0, reason appropriation of the Firearms Safe Storage Strategies grant funds for fiscal year 2026. Can I get a motion? Ms. Ayers, second. Mr. Thorsland, any discussion?
Do we have a presentation?
Yes, so I am going to ask Ms. Shauna Den Otter to come up and just share a brief update on this grant project.
All right, hello. Thank you for having me. And
A nice new room. I am going to try to be super brief because it has been a long meeting, but I did want to thank all of the board members who have helped me in the last 18 months, because there's a few of you who've been extra amazing at getting me connected to organizations in your neighborhoods, in your districts, and I really appreciate that. So it's been 2 years since Brandon Hardaway was shot outside of Porbros with a stolen gun, sort of how we ended up here with this grant. And it's been 1 year since my last year's second grade year-old daughter, her classmate was shot with a stolen gun in Urbana. And a young man lost his life on Mattis Avenue a couple days ago, and I don't know if that gun was stolen or not, but one is stolen out of a car every 9 minutes in America. And so with all of the outreach and education and resources that we've been giving out in the last 18 months, what I can't tell you is how many deaths haven't happened, because it's really hard to measure the things that aren't happening, because the resources and information that people have to now engage with secure storage. What has also been really interesting is that I'm relevant everywhere. I spent the entire month of August at back-to-school events at Douglas Park. I have been at the Disability Expo for 2 years running, and people are like, that's weird. Why are you at the Disability Expo? And it's because just because you have a disability or someone in your family does, doesn't mean that you don't have a firearm. And one of the first families that I had the pleasure of meeting were 2 young veterans who had 2 very small children who were both neurodivergent. And they had firearms in the house. They didn't have a super budget for storage. And then me being able to get them some safes was like, that's exactly why we're here. So I have also been to coffee talks at the Tolono Library and the Aging Resources event at Martin's. One of the more unexpected ones, an HOA from Muhammad had me out at their annual meeting, and I did a presentation for them, and the president of the HOA has taken over the distribution to the rest of the people who weren't at the annual general meeting. Pesodum Village, I presented at their board, and then they had me to their yard cleanup day, and so after people were done with their whatever yard cleanup day events they had, they swung by the community center and got a safe and a chat. We've had really amazing partners with the volunteer fire departments, which volunteer fire departments blows my mind how those even work. But I've been out to Homer's Open House and Carroll. Eastern Prairie has had me out. And then I've done a small tour of the libraries in Champaign County. I'm on deck for St. Joe for our number 2 very soon. Mahomet, Tolono, Rantoul, that one was in a snowstorm and the news was there, and I did not expect the news to be there, but we made the news. So the FRO trainings is the other part. So we have secure storage as sort of the main piece of the grant, and then firearms restraining order. The firearms restraining order piece is the bit that people are maybe less excited about, but now that the training has moved from the Illinois Attorney General's office to the Illinois State Police, it has gone so much better because the trainings are really accessible, and we don't have to run them because I don't have the really specific background to answer very legal questions about a FRO. I can explain how they work, where you go in Champaign County, and being able to give organizations who have further questions the links to be able to just book directly with ISP has been incredible. And for us in Champaign County, the FRO education is part of every presentation that I do. Every safe. So not everyone in Champaign County gets their safe from me, thank God, but I have given out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds individually to people, and every one of those people has heard me talk about why we do secure storage, how we do secure storage, and what a firearms restraining order is and how it works. Every safe that isn't given out by me also has that information in it. So there's a pamphlet, which I'm sure people are reading like very clearly before they put it off to the side. And we regularly post information and videos done by the Ad Council. Okay, and then, so the result of this one we can't actually measure. The number of froze in Champaign County has gone up exponentially, enough that we were specifically recognized at the IDPH grantee meeting that I was at. And we went from 7 petitions granted in 2023 to 16 in 2025. And the result of that is really messaging, explaining what they are and how to use them, and for people to really understand that they're a tool for violence interruption and suicide prevention. And then suicide. Our partnership with Be Smart creates a framework for judgment-free conversations about secure storage. But the R in SMART, because every letter stands for something, S is secure storage, M model responsible behavior around guns, A, ask before you send your small humans over how people are storing their guns. But the R is recognizing the role of guns in suicide. So more than half of gun deaths are suicide. That surprises people every time I say it. And when we think about gun violence, we think school shootings or homicide shootings, but both of those, while being very, very bad, suicide deaths fly under the radar because they don't make front page news. There's a stigma around suicide deaths, and I get that. My brother-in-law died by suicide in August 2020, and it is a very complicated grief. One of the reasons that Champaign County got this grant over other grantees is that our rate of death by suicide is higher than the state average for one group, men over the age of 50. So we have a good number of folks from other high-risk groups in the county, veterans and farmers, and then just in general, girls between 10 and 19 are more at risk from suicide. That's not just a Champaign County specific one, though. So we worked with the veterans, the VAC to distribute safes. There's currently a billboard up on South Dunlap, across from the Schnucks, highlighting awareness of the relationship between guns and veteran suicide, so look for that one. And then the safes. Feedback overall is really solid. We work directly with the company, and I believe we're getting good value for the money. The focus on the safes that we use can be used in cars. And at one point, I actually surveyed people. I was like, do you really need a biometric fingerprint opening for a safe if you're just using it in your car? And overwhelmingly, they all said yes. So, because I was like, I can get more safes if I don't have the fingerprint on it, but we stuck with them because that's what people are excited about. That's people what they want. It's what they're using. I could tell you all day long that the best way to secure storage is ammunition in one place, firearm locked up in another place, and people are like, not gonna do that. But the best actual secure storage is something that you will use. So if you need to keep your firearm ready in some way, then you now have access to a really secure box that opens with your fingerprint. Your kids can't get into. Your immediate need for it isn't being held back because it takes 2 seconds to use a fingerprint. And then if we swing back around to suicide prevention, it seems counterintuitive that something that you can open with a fingerprint would still be preventing suicide, but it does. Every time you need to make a decision, so you go to the box, you get the box, you put your finger on it, you open it and see the 988 sticker that I've put inside every single one of them. So all of those steps create a little bit more space. And that's what people in crisis need. Just a little bit of space and time because things don't stay bad forever. And so if we can just get people to the other side. But when you're talking about suicide and guns, you don't get a lot of do-overs because they're very effective. Okay. Oh, okay, so the last one. I can tell you why people haven't been buying safes. It's on their to-do list, and there's just too many choices. It's on their to-do list, and they needed to pay, I don't know, parking pass or groceries, or we all know what the cost of living is right now. They are grandparents that are new grandparents that suddenly have kids running around the house. There are new parents that suddenly have mobile children around the house. Their storage needs have changed. And so we're really providing a service that people are excited about, that I think they're using. And then the last one is law enforcement have been really amazing partners. We have the Rantoul Police Department ask for a bunch of safes. Mohammed, Chief Smizer, was on the news talking about secure storage and opening one of the safes and telling people about it. And the county sheriff's department has also been really good. And I'm talking to Champaign police about how many safes they would need and what that looks like. Because then they're also really good messengers. So if you have your friend who's a police officer who's like, oh, look at this safe that I got from the county, you should get one too, that's going to be more likely that you're going to turn around and ask for a safe than if I'm just handing you a flyer while you're at the Disability Expo at the mall. And the newest partnership I'm excited about, that I did lift the idea from another grantee, we have partnered with some of the concealed carry instructors. And so as long as they are talking about secure storage and the mental health intersection with suicide and guns, which apparently they already are doing all of these things, then they get to be the trusted messenger. They get to be the person who is the point part for the safe distribution. And again, it's just like, I'm not always going to be the best messenger for everyone. And then now the big number. We have distributed more than 1,150 safes and more than 2,000 cable gun locks. There's 351 people waiting on the list to get their safes. And if you ever want to feel popular, go ahead and email 351 people all at the same time. It's awesome. And the cable gun locks are mostly being picked up through pickup sites around the county. State's Attorney's Office is doing a bang-up job. CUPHD does great. There's a whole bunch. Farm Bureau. And people are, when they're not having to ask for one, they are taking as many as they need. Like even when I've switched from when I have like a safe pickup event, everyone sits at tables, and now I just dump like a bunch of locks on the tables. They take way more than when they came up and I said, take as many as you want. And they're like, 2. I'm like, oh, but if you actually need 5, like you can take 5. And so when they're out, they'll actually take 5. And I'm just really grateful for all the partners who have the pickup sites, and we've done a really good job, I think, making it like a low barrier kind of access, which makes it hard to collect data, because I want someone who may or may not have a FOID card to feel free, like they can come and get a safe. And I'm not here to tell you that you can't have one, because if you do have one, don't have a card, just take a safe. So I have a little bit of like tracking, but that's, you know, it's kind of the people who want to fill out the survey do. And I know who has gotten a safe and where they're from, but that's it. Thank you, that's it.
Questions for Sean? I saw Mr. Pugh and then Ms. Carter.
Yes, I want to thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for coming out to Douglas Park all the time, holidays, other anti-gun violence things we do there. And I just want to say, I actually do need some more gun locks, because we just ran out the 5.59 from the last little bit you gave me. And if I may too, the woman right behind you actually does a lot of anti-gun violence events on the north end too. China, you might want to get to talk to her too.
I think we've met through like school board stuff, I think.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Ms. Carter.
I think the doctor just mentioned, and you also, that I think with media, they try to play it as gun violence only affecting the Black community. Like you just said, that gun violence is often spoken of in the media, in the newspaper, on the news. But you kind of skipped over real quick, who are the victims of suicide incidents? You said males 50 and older?
Yeah, in Champaign County, we are, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but we have a higher average than the state average of men over the age of 50.
Is that Black or white men?
That's a really good question. I think
it's white
men.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear her say that, because like I said, once again, that there's a myth connecting to gun violence only being in the Black community. I look at it as a community problem, right?
Absolutely.
Because we are all falling victim to gun violence.
Yeah.
Whether it's me shooting or a person taking their life.
Yeah.
So thank you for that information.
And then if I can add something, I don't think we hear as much about the suicide because it does stay a little bit lower. And one of the challenges with working in this sort of space in Champaign County is that we have so many areas to focus on. Like I spend time at Douglas Park in the summer at the back to school stuff, and then going out to Rantoul to like try to meet some people who like live on farms. And so they're not gonna be at the same place. And we are all working with maybe different pieces of the problem, but I'm trying to find ways to connect with everyone.
And we appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Thorsland.
Yeah, first I'll preface this with I take absolutely zero credit for anything, but I'm going to tell you a story. Was it, you said about 2.5 years ago, Brandon Hardaway was shot outside Poor Brothers with a gun stolen out of a car. I went on a little rant, as I'm known to do. I got home, and when I got home, I had an email in my inbox from a person who was at the county board meeting who said, "You got me thinking about getting a safe for my car. You won't let me bring a gun into the county board meeting, so I left it in my car in the parking lot." And he gave me his name. I won't say what district or what their name was. And I relayed this. Ellie, Michelle, a bunch of people ran with this. You have run so far with this. 1,500 something?
1,150.
1,150. Biometric gun saves.
I have one if you want to see it. But
I know what they look like. And a bunch of cable locks. And it's been really wonderful to see this happen. And again, I take absolutely no credit for it, but you think, you don't know anybody who's doing this. And I had an email by the time I got home of someone who was like, I should start thinking about that. And they emailed me a couple days later and they had bought a safe for their gun for their car. So very good. Really great work. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say that like sometimes the concealed carry thing is really a logistical problem. Like if there are places that you can't bring it inside, where are you going to put it? And then so now I'm like, I have a safe, you can put it in your car.
Funding for this program is ending in June, I believe.
June 28th.
Yeah. So we are starting to think about options for that. If anybody on this board has any good suggestions or ideas for other places we could look for funding to continue this program, let Shauna know.
Yeah, because the work has changed a little bit in like from year 1 to year 2. Year 1, I was like, I exist and this thing exists and no one had any idea of what I was talking about. And now it's like continuing partnerships and people are picking up. Like we just did a presentation with Carl Healthy Beginnings, and so all of their like home visiting nurses have been trained, and now they have a supply of safes, and they have relationships with families for something like 2 years, and so they're able to like, and they are going to be able to take it forward, and so it's less like building something and more like just going now.
Any other questions for Shauna? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So back to the budget amendment. I believe we had a motion and this was discussion. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Budget Amendment BUA 2026-2-12, Fund 2500, County Grant Fund, Department 036, Public Defender, increased appropriations $57,937.50, increased revenue 0, reason appropriation of grant funds to offset the Public Defender's Expert Witness Program expenses. Can I get a motion? Ms. Carter, Chair Locke, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Monthly reports from the auditor are available through June 2025 on the webpage. Monthly reports from the treasurer are available through January 2026 on the webpage. Next, we have a resolution authorizing the county executive to assign mobile home tax sales certificate of purchase, permanent parcel 25-045-0011. Can I get a motion? Mr. Farney, second by Mr. Esri. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. D, County Executive, we have an available budget report, which is information only. And then next we have the fiscal year 2024 audit update, which was passed out tonight. So you all should have received it on your desk. I will just read it into the record for everyone, since I know it was just received. At the May 13th Committee of the Whole, the County Board directed the County Executive's Office to take the lead on the fiscal year 24 audit. Since that time, the County Executive's Office has been in communication with Clifton Larson Allen, LLP, CLA, and hired certified public accounting firm to assist with the fiscal year 24 audit. This company was selected because one of their employees used to work for the county and has firsthand knowledge of the county's prior audits, including doing the fiscal year 23 audit for the county. As the executive's office has worked alongside the outside firm to make timelines and plans on how to proceed with each step of the audit process, it was done under the original assumption that even though reconciliations and work papers hadn't been started, which they should have already been completed by that time, at least the fundamental accounting of the county's books for fiscal year 24 had been done properly. As each step of the audit work has unfolded, it has been discovered this was not the case, so the scope of the project has drastically changed. It turned from completing work papers and audit work into fixing an extremely broken year of accounting by combing through the entire year and fixing underlying fundamental accounting issues by the auditor's office. For example, millions of dollars of cash not recorded correctly, entries booked to the wrong fiscal year, funds, accounts, monthly reviews not completed, et cetera, before the processes that have typically been considered the audit work could even be completed. These audit processes must be completed in a certain order because one step affects the next step and so on. So until each step is started, it has been impossible to know the extent of how much needs to be fixed before the audit work can be started. This extra work has had to be done at every step of the process. The vast majority of time that has been spent by the executive's office and accounting firm has been fixing the issues with the county's accounting books and not what has been historically classified as audit work, such as minor corrections, tie-outs, and work papers. According to the consultant who also did the fiscal year 23 audit for the county, the fiscal year 23 and 24 accounting books are night and day, with the fiscal year 24 books in such an extreme mess. The county is finalizing the due to do from reconciliations, which reconcile items that cross different funds. Like every step in the process have been significantly more time-consuming and complex than prior years due to all the accounting errors. For reference, 4 staff members and the consultant have spent the past several days looking through hundreds of entries line by line in multiple Munis modules to figure out how they are correlated to each other and determining which fiscal year fund account they should actually be booked in. Once all the due to do from coding corrections are found and posted, the reconciliation can be finalized. This is the final step before the trial balance is run and sent off to CLA. After that, the county has a few more items that are submitted to CLA along with the trial balance or that don't get completed until after the trial balance is finalized. However, CLA can start their portion of work once the trial balance is submitted. Once the county gets the fiscal year 24 audit submitted, work on the fiscal year 25 audit will start. Many of the same accounting issues that occurred in fiscal year 24 also occurred in fiscal year 25. In addition, none of the reconciliations or monthly tie-outs for fiscal year 25 have been started, so it will be another complex, time-consuming audit process.
If I may, I just have a quick question.
Yeah, Mr.
It's actually because there's actually something coming up. Do we have a rough estimate when the audit will be done?
So my understanding is that the hope is that The trial balance will be sent to CLA hopefully sometime this week. But again, they keep finding more and more as they go through it. And CLA will not give us an exact time estimate on how much time they will need until they see the trial balance. But we have asked them proactively to hire as many people as they need to hire to get this done as quickly as possible once it hits their desk.
No, I get that too, because I got something from DeLit, so today I would like to read for the board real quick, just to kind of give a little bit, there's a time crunch. The Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, DCEO, is our cognizant agency since we received the most funding from them. Given the fact that the funding we receive from DCEO is for programs which serve the most vulnerable, they have continued to allow us to draw down funds and serve the public while we await the completion of the audit. If the audit is not completed by August 1st, we will not be permitted to draw administration expenses or program support for LIHEAP and weatherization grants. And we may have to also be placed on a technical assistance plan, TAP, or a corrective action plan, CAP. For CSBG, which he did not give me what that means, DCEO will notify federal HHS and handle next steps in accordance with the federal CSBG statute and regulations. At that time, we will also not be permitted to execute new grant agreements or modifications that increase the grant budget with DCEO. So I'm just hoping we get it done fast. Thank you.
Ms. Carter.
I think you and JJ should resign. This is a complete mess that was created with people that feel like they shouldn't work together to get this done. This is an embarrassment. The whole county is talking about this. And sometimes I sit and I wonder, I say, do they have an insight to what the community thinks of the mess that they created? Do they talk to you? Because this has been one big mess, and you see it's trickling down and trickling down. Y'all need to resign, because this makes absolutely no sense. You take the auditor employees, and then you're going to fix the problem that you created because you don't want to work with the auditor, and then we even further behind than where we started. Make it make sense. Y'all got more to talk about with, what was we just discussing? The amendment rights than you did about Michelle's salary increase. But y'all over the finances, but don't have nothing to say about how money is spent frivolously from this budget. Makes absolutely no sense. You need to resign. JJ, you need to resign. The audit needs to get done.
I saw Ms. Furtado and then Ms. Locke.
I want to say this. For the last 3 years I've lived this. I've been on calls with the past auditor, or with the current auditor and the person that's completing this audit for the 2003 audit, or 23 audit. I don't know how a human being could try to sound an alarm more than was done, not just by me, but by former, we didn't agree on very many things, but on this we did, on former Assistant Deputy Finance Chair Jim Goss, to JJ, to Ellie. I kept saying, this is an emergency. This office isn't functioning. This is an emergency. This office isn't functioning. This is an emergency. This office isn't functioning. And that was in 23. The fact that it's worse in 24, and if you even have a 5-minute conversation with the folks that work in finance, the stuff that they're describing, this isn't an audit. This is trying to go back a year and a half and do the basic accounting that an entire office stopped doing when the deputy left. The last time when the deputy left in 2024, what happened in that office is it is worse than I thought, and I was yelling fire. The idea that anyone would try to hold accountable the people that are trying to fix a disaster by somebody who derelicted their duty to the point of, and let me be clear, there will be consequences for it, right? There are timelines when they cannot be met. It would have been better in some cases if we were starting from scratch, because when you completely put funds in the wrong place and have to sort out from years later what was the logic of what was done, right? And then try to sort it out, and you fix this fund, well, that means now this fund is out of balance. This is where we are because, to be blunt, we should have, and this is the only time I'm probably ever going to say this, so if he's watching, we should have listened to Jim Goss in 2021 and taken action then. The one thing that I will apologize for as being finance chair is that I should have sounded the alarm a year and a half earlier.
Then you hire the employees that were supposed to be doing the work. You make no sense.
You do not have the floor, Ms. Carter.
Keep lying. Keep lying.
You do not have the floor.
What we're seeing now is the consequences of a person who utterly refused to do the job or hire people who could. We're fixing it. There's going to be consequences for that. The fact that I'm no longer finance chair, I mean, I don't really know how. The two of you
do
are,
not have the floor. Please remain silent so Ms. Furtado can speak.
I want to thank you both for trying to proactively come up with a solution so that, just to be honest, maybe by the time we get to 2026, we could dig ourselves out of the disastrous hole that we found ourselves in.
Chair Locke. Dr. Furtado has made many of my points. I will reiterate that when we took over the audit, it was because deadlines had been met. And we hoped that by taking over in the early part of the year after deadlines had not been met, you do not have the floor, Ms. Carter. You can have another turn after you let others speak. Thank you. At least there was an assumption that at least the fundamental accounting of the county's books had been done properly. We had a department head who hired not for accounting skill. We had a department head who did not train. Train his employees. We had a department head who did not even know how to log in to the audit system. So he couldn't train anybody. And yes, I wish we could go back in time and act before I was on this board. I wish we could go back in time and all have taken it as seriously as it needed to. We are here now. It is an embarrassment now. It is a disaster now. It is an emergency now. It is an emergency of the auditor's office's creation. Had we not taken the employees, it would have been the same landmines that would have needed to be discovered, the same millions of dollars that were not recorded properly, just somewhere. That's good enough. Just somewhere is good enough. We'd be in the same situation, only we'd have no one knowledgeable at the helm of the ship. Mr. Pugh, I appreciate you bringing up Delitzo's concerns from RPC. I've spoken with him at length. I'm assuming Mr. Wilson has and that Mr. Summer has, because we are RPC commissioners as well. And it is something that we really do need to worry about. And RPC, in sounding the alarm, was then attacked publicly by a defensive department head who did not know how to do this. We are digging out. This year is terrible. Next year will be less bad, but still bad. And the hope is that with items being entered properly since September 29th of 2025, the hope is that the audit for financial year 25 will be okay, maybe, but for financial year 26 will be good. It's going to be bad for a while. It's going to be very bad. It is the fault of one office. And all we can do now, instead of lobbing bombs at each other over whose fault it is, honestly, it doesn't matter. We know who it is. Anybody, you do not have the floor. I do not wish to have a recess, but I will call one until you can compose yourself if you interrupt one more board member. It is the fault of the auditor. I will say that, I'll say it directly to the camera. It is the fault of the auditor who did not even know how to log in to the audit software. However, we are doing the best we can to fix it. But if you think that you just need a map to get there, and then there's undiscovered landmines and more undiscovered landmines, and you think you're almost there, and then there's more landmines, all you can do is hope to get there. So we can continue fighting about it, but there's no point. It's not going to do anything other than make this more embarrassing. I appreciate the work that the finance chair and vice chair have put in. You have put in so much. I appreciate the leadership. I appreciate the leadership of the executive's office in finding a solution. And I appreciate that RPC has been willing to step up and say how difficult it has been and to sound the alarms, even in spite of the attacks placed on them, the attacks against them immediately from the truly culpable party.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. This may be the second time in the evening that my co-chair on the RPC are in agreement, which is wonderful. Bipartisanship sometimes is reality. Here's what I've learned by being on the county board. I make it a point to listen even when I disagree. I make it a point to listen even when I disagree. I don't think I've ever disparaged any member because I'm in disagreement with them. And it may be strong disagreement, like the Second Amendment. But I'm not going to attack your person or your personhood because we don't agree. Spending years in the nuclear industry, corrective action plans, root causes, all that stuff. I read this report, fiscal year 24 audit update information only. It clearly and succinctly describes the issues that we're facing. And it looks like a fundamental breakdown in stewardship or management. And when the foundations are broken down in any structure, whether it's financial or personal or a building, sometimes you have to dig really deep. And maybe you have to reset the foundation or restructure the foundation, but you have to dig until you've discovered all the issues. Unfortunately, it says right here, they're fixing underlying fundamental accounting issues. An audit is basically a cursory review. Do the dots connect? Does it make sense? And then maybe there's some changes that need to be made, but they're not catastrophic. And I would say if someone had a dispute with respect to the veracity of this report, then an inquiring mind would take the time to sit down with the individuals in the details and try to understand it. And I've never been in an environment where accusation works. So number one, I do applaud Stephanie, although we don't agree on 1,000 things, but I definitely applaud her tenacity and her integrity. And I could still disagree with her. But I'm not disagreeing on the fundamental aspects of what's happening here. I 100% support our current finance chair and our current vice chair. Guess what? It's not their role to fix it. It's not their role. They can't swim in that lane. The ones that swim in the lane are the ones that do the work. It is the job of the finance committee to call balls and strikes, try to figure out how to fix it or find someone to fix it. They don't fix it themselves. And this is like a massive root canal. It's not just a cavity fill, it's a root canal. And God loved them for doing it. And it's bad, it's ugly, okay, so we'll get through it. But asking people to quit or to resign when someone else voted for them to be in that office, then go talk to their constituents and find someone to compete against them in the next election. So I want to say thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Finance Chair and Vice Finance Chair, for all your hard work. I want you to keep doing your job, which you are. And I think we should do all we can to support resolution and not destroy it. Thank you.
Mr. Pugh.
Thank you. Sorry, there was one more point from Mr. Lillet. So the stop pay is affecting some of our grants in terms of inability to draw down funds or submit new grant applications. However, we have been able to access funding for a majority of our grants. That's why we have continued to provide most of our services except for a few initiatives that were not exempted from the stop pay. But my thought is there's a lot of blame to go around. Here, there, everywhere else. We just need to get it done. So if it's not going to get done by April 1st, come back to us, ask for some more money. Let's hire somebody else, because we hired 2 people. Well, actually, we hired a person and a firm way back when, and they have not really spent many hours doing this yet. I think as of December, it was like 1/6 that were billed. If they're not doing it, let's hire some people that will get it done, because it needs to get done. And if we have people that are not doing this, or we need to hire extra people, let's do it. That's what I'm gonna say.
I will just add that I want to thank Travis and his team who have been working overtime on this, as well as the extra people that this board did direct administration to hire. It's very easy to sit here and say, why hasn't this been done yet? It is absolutely urgent. The house is absolutely on fire. We are on a stop payment. We can't apply for new grants. It is absolutely horrible. I agree with Stephanie. I think she mentioned this. Well, she mentioned not doing something in 2021. I wasn't on the board then, but I wish that we had acted even sooner to hire these additional people and move the staff, because everything in government takes a really long time. And so, yes, we as a board made a decision in May, and we are just now seeing what was at the bottom of the root canal, or whatever analogy you want to use. I will just add, there are people behind this. There's human elements behind this. One of the primary people that we hired to do this extra work had twins in November and was then hospitalized intermittently shortly after that. So I'm not making excuses for anybody, but there are people who have human issues that do come up that slow things down, and that is the case here as well. Any further discussion on the audit? Ms. Lakshin?
I would just like to ask, where was your concern for RPC and their ability to draw grants when the audit was still in Mr. Danos's office?
Ms. Carter.
I would like those at home to know that to be here and know the mentality of some of these individuals that have titles that are not doing their job is some of the reason why there has been such a disconnect from the audit's office and this finance committee. Okay, we pick and choose who we like, who we want to do business with, who we talk to. Like I said, JJ and Ellie need to quit. We cannot trust anything that comes out of their mouths. They're not telling the whole story, only telling the half truth.
I would ask Ms. Carter to please refrain from ad hominem attacks, please.
Okay, I would. But when it comes from anything from Mr. Travis, I don't believe that either. And I'm sorry, I'm just a community member, just listening to constituents with their frustration with how this audit has been done. And it's just truly sad, and it has been very disappointing to hear people talk about my board members not doing their jobs. So I think the best thing is, if you can't do the job, please pass it on to somebody else so that we can get out of this situation that we've been in for the last 3 years against the auditor's office, so that one day we can all work together efficiently. Thank you.
Mr. Farney.
I'm going to agree with something Mrs. Carter just said. There is one person who has failed in their duties over and over and over, and that's George Danos, and he still collects $100,000 a year.
Okay, let's move on. We have post-issuance compliance reporting for 2022A and 2022B bonds, information only. Resolution abating certain taxes hereto levied to pay the principal of and interest on various outstanding bonds of the County of Champaign, Illinois. Can I get a motion? Mr. Esri, Mr. Sexton, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next, we have from the sheriff, approval of release of an RFP for emergency management hazard mitigation planning. Can I get a motion? Mr. Thorsland, second from, was that Chair Locke? I didn't see, okay. Any discussion? Doesn't look like we have the sheriff here tonight. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I have no other business. I have no chair's report. Designation of items to be placed on the consent agenda. We have A3.
Didn't you say you wanted to keep 3 off of consent?
That was 2.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So A3, A4, A5, C2, and D4.
Thank you. Moving on. First, moving on to other business. We have a study session regarding OMA and FOIA on March 24th, 2026 at 6 p.m. I'd encourage, it's like all study sessions, they're not mandatory, but I would encourage all new members to please attend. And then I would ask all of our veteran members to consider attending. We could all use a refresher, because I could give a quiz right now on OMA, and I guarantee you some of us would talk about violating it right now. So we're not going to do that. Please, everybody come. Andrew Muller does a great presentation on it. It'll be an hour of your life where you will actually learn something, even if you've attended it before. And now, communications. I'm going to start. See You at Home is... We gave them $580,000 from the opioid settlement fund to build out a much larger place for stages 1 through 3 of their program. They have finished it. They're going to be moving people in March. So in the month of February, any interested board member who would like to tour it should contact me. We can arrange a group tour because of OMA. We have to keep it at 6 board members or fewer at a time so we don't trigger an open meeting. But they're agreeable to arrange a couple of these if people want to tour. So just contact me and I'll get in touch with them so that we can kind of coordinate it without bombing them with 22 different emails. Everybody has my email. Contact me about that. It's their new location on Mattis, and it's really nice inside. So that's all. Now, any other communications from the board? Mr. Pugh.
Thank you. Just one quick thing. The memorandum we got read in tonight, so make sure it gets on the website because I did have a few people ask me about that. Second thing, Healing Invisible Wounds Incorporated, Champaign County NAACP, and Champaign County Veterans Assistance Commission joint collaboration honoring our local veterans. This is going to be, we look forward to acknowledging those who are so overlooked. Thank you for your continued service. This is going to be at the American Legion Post 559, 704 North Hickory Street, Champaign, Illinois. And it's going to be Saturday, February 28th from 12 to 3. There's going to be a lot of good food there. Even if you're not a veteran, you can probably still come by and wish some veterans some good luck. See if you can help them out a little bit. And I will stop there. Thank you.
Ms. Carter?
I got 2 things. The study session, is that 6 or 6:30 on the 24th?
Study sessions are at 6 p.m.
It's 6 p.m. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, I would also like to plead and beg to our constituents to please vote. We have choices. Please open early voting, or early voting is open. Please utilize your right to vote, and hopefully one day we'll get out of this mess that we're in under the current leadership. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks, Member Pugh. I like Post 559. I've been there a couple times. Really enjoy being there. Happy birthday, Abraham Lincoln. Right? That's February 12th. He was born February 12th, born in Kentucky. And then he was assassinated in 1867. I actually didn't know this till today. The Land of Lincoln, I know it's the official slogan of Illinois. The Land of Lincoln is the official state slogan and nickname for Illinois, but it was adopted in 1955 to honor Abraham Lincoln's deep ties to the state, although he was born in Kentucky. And he didn't move to Illinois until he was 21 years old. He is the first Republican president. And the party was formed in part to halt the spread of slavery, promote free soil, free labor, free speech, and free men. I think his lasting legacy are these 5 things: preservation of the Union, ending slavery in America, vindication of our American ideals, his leadership and eloquence, and then he's a symbol of a self-made man, an enduring inspiration. He started a log cabin and ended up as the President of the United States. So happy birthday, Abraham Lincoln.
Further communications from the board? All right. Call this meeting adjourned at 8:42 p.m.